going to open up now for questions. If you have any for folks who've spoken, if you would care to stay and interview individuals, you're perfectly welcome to do that. Are there questions?
Realistically speaking, what would be the chances of the arizonification in Missouri, and would there be votes to stop it if a bill came up?
We had a bill this last session. It was called HB 590, and we stopped it. It's been every single session since I can remember, certainly since MIRA has existed, and we're going back now to 2003. There's been a bill in every single legislative session that would, in some fashion, put Arizonification forward. The originator, the author of most of those bills, is the same author as the Arizona bills, Chris Koba. He has been in Missouri throwing mud up against the barn walls for the last 8 years. Thankfully, so far, not much of it has stuck. We hope to be able to continue that in this next legislative session. Of course, we're urging folks to get out and vote.
And why is it that with the big Republican majorities we see in the state, it hasn't passed, at least? Obviously there's got to be some opposition within the Republicans to keep that from happening.
Absolutely. We've had some really good support from the Republican side of the aisle. Republican legislators who understand that there is an economic impact of immigrants. It's a positive impact in the state of Missouri, that have worked with us to be sure that those bills don't pass. We expect that continues, and I wish there were more of them. Certainly we've had large support on the Democratic side.
I would add, though, that...
If you could microphone? Step on it.
I would add, though, that we need to continue to educate communities and people across the state and around the United States. Nobody denies that there needs to be comprehensive immigration reform, but what this recent Supreme Court ruling did is that it reinforced the idea that it is the purview of the federal government and not for it to be piecemeal state by state. So the more we educate people, the more people hear chiefs of police and the pressures they confront every day, the more people will come to understand that it is not the purview of local police to enforce this problem. It is the purview of the federal government. So we all need to work on this together.
Have you guys run into any local police department? I know the city of St. Anne, for example, was talking about giving its officers power to stop and question people about their immigration status. Are there any instances in Missouri you know of where the local law enforcement is actually doing this because of local ordinance?
We certainly have had reports from any number of, let me be careful about that. I was about to say any number of communities, at least several communities in St. Louis County that I think both
about which we have great concern in the way in which they develop. There's more than anecdotal information out there that certain communities have been targeted by certain police departments. And I think the greater frustration has been trying to figure out how to challenge that appropriately. It's very difficult to find people willing to be plaintiffs in these cases when they're afraid of potential consequences.
Well, which police departments, which jurisdictions are we talking about? I know we heard something from St. Anne. Are they involved?
I think there have been complaints out of St. Anne for some years. There have been groups trying to talk to those folks for a long period of time. There are issues that have been addressed in St. John. That whole kind of neighborhood of small communities where there are large populations of Spanish-speaking immigrants who are faced with these challenges. A fair number of whom happen to be U.S. citizens.
Yeah. Could you step up to the mic? Because you mentioned, I'm sorry.
Well, no, it was the issue, it was about 5 years ago, Valley Park. It was a famous issue of people being evicted for not being able to rent in Valley Park, and then it was...
Has any of that been going on recently, though, within the last 4 or 5 years?
We've been working since 2009 to try to deal with St. Anne and the municipalities around St. Anne. We're also hearing cases in Brooklyn, in Bridgeton, in St. Charles. It moves around. There's a thing called, a ruling called 287G, which is supposed to be the highway patrol trained to do the work of us. But there's an assumption that other police forces can do the same.
Now, is this coming, as far as you guys know, from the local governments in places like Berkeley, St. John, St. Anne? In other words, are the police departments being given orders by the mayor and the city council, or are they doing this on their
I
own?
think it depends. It really depends.
And there are going to be those who say, well, we need to make sure that the people are legal.
Well, you know what we found with working in St. Anne is when the police and the community talk, they realize that it's making the community less safe, and the police can't really do their work. But the issue, I think, a lot of times is money. We arrest a lot of people, we get paid. We get the fines, we get the bail, we get all that money. And so if we could find some way to fund the police department, maybe they wouldn't have to be going after immigrants to meet their quotas.
How does it make the community less safe?
If I think I'm going to be turned over for deportation, I'm not going to report a crime that I see. I'm not going to trust the police.
What's your name and title?
My name is Marilyn Lorenz, L-O-R-E-N-Z. I'm the program coordinator of the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America. I'll give you my contact.
Chief Finch, if I could ask you a follow-up. Now, if you've got all these small police departments within St. Louis County where you guys don't have any jurisdiction who are doing this, I mean, do you ever worry about that there's going to be a problem of coordination between your department and one of these other departments, saying if something untoward should happen while they're busting somebody on suspicion of being illegal? You said this is not going to be a policy of your police department absent of state law, yet a lot of police departments with whom you have to coordinate aren't doing this.
Well, first of all, it's not about small police departments. It's about some police departments. Besides, there are many, many small excellent police departments in St. Louis County who don't engage in any kind of activity like this. So just to make that clear. And the second thing I will tell you is they are all operating independently. All of those municipalities have their own police department, run their police department by their own rules, and we, the county police, have absolutely no say, no jurisdiction over them. None at all.
So how does it strike you as a law enforcement, just as a matter of philosophy in law enforcement, for a local cop shop to be doing that sort of
I
thing?
mentioned that earlier, that when we engage in that kind of behavior, we really degrade the relationship that we've established with our communities to come forward and tell us when there's problems in their neighborhood, when there's domestic violence issues in their family, and that really takes away that trust.
Would you like to see those smaller departments stop doing that?
That, again, I don't have any say over that. I don't have any control over that. That is really up to the elected officials of those cities that may allow that kind of activity to take place. But it's no secret that I have said before, and just kind of reiterate that police departments should not operate off of fines, should not operate off of traffic tickets, that citizens of these cities should support their police departments adequately. The funding should be supported, and they shouldn't have to rely on people passing through their town to generate revenue for their city. That's the wrong reason to have a police department.
Chief, you were working with the county NAACP on complaints of some of these departments and the fact that they were the police were racial profiling. I'm sorry, the NAACP is not here. But can you tell me if any progress has been made with your work with the NAACP and these complaints that they've brought forth?
I would say some progress has been made. They continue to have dialogue with the cities, and they've identified those that they suspect are involved in that activity. We also saw a change in the police departments in Wellwood, if you remember that, just a few months ago. Certainly there was some of that allegation that was going on in Wellwood. About a year ago, we began police services in Jennings. Again, that was another location that I know the ACLU had brought their attention on several occasions. So I think we're making some progress. It's really up to the independent elected officials of those cities to make those decisions and changes.
Any other municipalities any conversations about turning over their law enforcement to you?
Yes, at any given time we're in conversations with different municipalities about that.
Care to name any?
Care not to name any.
I thought so. Like, no.
Yes, I just like to say that no, for sure, there is racial profiling, and it does exist. It's not even really. We need to stop that participation that's going on. Also, there are stats to prove that African Americans are stopped about 3 times as many as other ethnic groups. So we need to look at that. We need to work on that, and of course, the immigration laws need
had a bunch of things that are like Arizona's introduced. Variations on it, English only on driver's licenses, a number of other things. Question to you, as a member of the legislature, since the Republicans hold an overwhelming majority, and since for the Republicans immigration, especially illegal immigration, is a hot button issue, what's your read? Why do you think this stuff has failed to pass so far, but do you think it might eventually?
I would hope that it would. I've been opposed to the English only as well. I don't think we need to go back in time, which is where it seems to be that a lot of the instances and bills that we have currently are taking us back in the past, and we need to move forward and be more positive. I'm not sure where we're going to go with the overall majority being, not good ones. So we need to work hard to strengthen and educate those that are there, and hopefully their vision and their views will change.
I would add something to that, if I may, Representative Pace. Representative Pace and her colleagues in the House have been very vocal. They've been on the floor. They've talked when these bills have come up for debate. They've done their best to talk to the death, as a matter of fact. And as you know, there's no filibuster in the House of Representatives. And sad to say that most of the bills that we've been talking about here, not 590 because it was a Senate bill, but the driver's license bill and others actually passed the House. And they pass the House every year. It's in the Senate that they have been stopped. And that's gotten rougher over the years, but it's still sticking. And we hope that it will continue to stick in 2013 as we go back to the legislative session. I would think that what the Supreme Court has done in undoing those three provisions of SB 1070 in Arizona would hopefully send a message to our legislature up and down the aisles and across the aisles in all directions that this is not the kind of thing that's going to carry sway in Missouri, or for that matter, before the Supreme Court, if that's the direction that any particular bill or passed would have to go. I can tell you that the education, we take Nancy's advice very seriously, and we're going to be doing a number of meetings with legislators all throughout the summer and fall to help with that education process. And we'll talk with them about the meeting of the Supreme